I stood in the hallway of my mother's empty house, staring at the dust particles floating through the afternoon light, and I realized with absolute horror that I couldn't remember the last time I'd hugged her. Not the day, not the month, not even the year. The lawyers had just handed me the keys along with a letter she'd left behind, and when I opened it, my hands started shaking so violently I had to sit down on the floor. The first line read, "To my daughter, who forgot I existed." I hadn't visited her in 3 years. Not once. And now she was gone, and the secret she'd been keeping from me was about to destroy everything I thought I knew about my entire life. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how I became the kind of person who abandons their own mother. My name is Rebecca, and 5 years ago, I had what everyone called the perfect life. I was 32, married to a successful investment banker named Marcus, living in a stunning townhouse in the city, and I'd just gotten promoted to senior marketing director at a pharmaceutical company. My calendar was color-coded, my meals were prepped on Sundays, and I wore designer clothes that made me feel like I'd finally made it. I'd clawed my way up from a lower middle-class background, and I was determined never to look back. My mother, Patricia, still lived in the same small 3-bedroom house in the suburbs where I grew up. After my father died when I was 19, she'd worked as a school secretary to keep the house and never remarried. She was one of those mothers who called every Sunday without fail, who sent care packages with homemade cookies, who kept every single card and photo I'd ever given her displayed on her refrigerator. I loved her, I really did. But somewhere along the way, love became obligation, and obligation became resentment. Marcus never said it directly, but I knew he thought my mother was beneath us. He'd make little comments about her outdated furniture, her simple life, her lack of sophistication. I started making excuses. Work was busy. We had plans. Maybe next month. The calls went from every Sunday to every other week, then monthly. Then, whenever I remembered, she never complained, never guilt-tripped me, which somehow made it easier to keep pulling away. What I didn't know was that my mother had been diagnosed with stage 3 ovarian cancer 14 months before she died, and she never told me because she didn't want to be a burden. I found out about her death from her neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who'd been checking on her daily during those final months. Mrs. Chen called me on a Tuesday morning while I was in a meeting. When I finally called back during lunch, she told me in her broken English that my mother had passed away peacefully in her sleep 2 days earlier. 2 days. My mother had been dead for 2 days, and I hadn't even known. The service was small. Maybe 20 people, mostly her old friends from the school where she'd worked. I stood at the front in my black Prada dress, accepting condolences from people who'd been more present in my mother's life than I had. They kept saying she talked about you all the time, and she was so proud of you, and each comment felt like a knife sliding between my ribs. After the funeral, the lawyer contacted me about the will. He handed me an envelope along with the house keys and said my mother had left specific instructions that I was to read her letter alone in the house before making any decisions about the estate. That's how I ended up sitting on the hardwood floor of my childhood home, reading words that would haunt me forever. To my daughter, who forgot I existed. I'm not writing this to make you feel guilty. I'm writing this because you deserve to know the truth, and I was too much of a coward to tell you while I was alive. By the time you read this, I'll be gone, and maybe that's better. Your father didn't die of natural causes, Rebecca. He was murdered. The room tilted. I read the line again, and again. My father, Robert Morrison, had died of a massive heart attack in his car outside a convenience store when I was 19 years old. The police had investigated, found nothing suspicious, and that was that. He was working on something dangerous before he died. He was an accountant for several major companies, and he discovered financial fraud, money laundering, something big enough that someone wanted him silenced. The heart attack was induced, Rebecca. They made it look natural. I found out 6 months after he died when a man came to our house and told me everything. He said your father had compiled evidence, and that's why they killed him. This man warned me that if I ever tried to use that evidence, they'd kill you too. So I buried it, Rebecca. I buried the truth about your father's death because keeping you safe was the only thing that mattered. I watched you grow up and become successful and eventually forget about me. and I told myself it was worth it because you were alive and you were happy. The evidence is still in a safety deposit box. Box 347 at First National Bank on Maple Street. The key is taped to the bottom of my jewelry box in my bedroom. I'm leaving the decision to you. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely keep reading. But here's the part one need you to understand. 3 months ago, I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. Stage 3, aggressive, already spreading. The doctors gave me maybe a year with treatment. I chose to die on my own terms rather than put you through the burden of caring for a sick mother who you'd already decided wasn't worth your time. I could have called you. I could have told you I was dying. But I realized that I'd spent your entire life trying to protect you, and in doing so, I'd raised someone who only knew how to take and never how to give back. That's on me, Rebecca. I let you drift away because I thought that's what good mothers did. So now you have a choice. You can take your father's evidence and honor his memory, which will likely destroy the comfortable life you've built. Or you can destroy it all and go back to forgetting I ever existed. Either way, I want you to know that I loved you more than anything in this world, even when you made it clear that love wasn't enough anymore. I'm sorry I won't be there to hug you goodbye. But then again, you stopped accepting my hugs years ago.
Mom.
I sat there on that floor as the sun moved across the walls. My father had been murdered. My mother had known for over a decade and kept it secret to protect me. And she died alone, wasting away from cancer, while I'd been too busy to even notice she'd stopped calling. The guilt was crushing, but what came next was worse, because I realized that part of me was actually calculating whether pursuing justice was worth disrupting my life. In her bedroom, I found the jewelry box and the small brass key taped to the bottom. I held it in my palm, feeling its weight like an anchor. I could open that safety deposit box and expose whoever killed my father. Or I could throw the key away and go back to my perfect life. Marcus called while I was standing there. "How are you holding up, babe?" he asked with that perfect blend of concern and impatience. "Do you need me to come over there?"
No, I'm fine.
"I'll be home soon." "Okay, well, don't forget we have dinner with the Hendersons tomorrow night. Important for the promotion I'm going for." The Hendersons. The promotion. The life that just kept moving forward while my mother was dead and my father's murder was unsolved. I took the key to the bank the next morning. Inside box 347 was a thick manila envelope containing hundreds of pages of financial documents, ledgers, bank statements, and handwritten notes in my father's cramped handwriting. Names of companies, names of people, massive amounts of money being moved through shell corporations. And right there in my father's notes, I saw one name that made my blood run cold. Hendricks Pharmaceutical Group, the parent company of the firm where I worked. The company that was about to promote Marcus's boss, Gerald Henderson, to CEO. My father had been killed by the same people who were now my professional family. If I exposed this, Marcus's company would be implicated. Our friends, our social circle, our entire life was intertwined with these people. And if my father was right, going public would put me directly in their crosshairs. That night, I told Marcus everything. I thought he'd be shocked, horrified, supportive. Instead, he got very quiet, and then he said something that changed everything. "Rebecca, you need to destroy those documents."
Right now.
"Tonight." My father was murdered, Marcus. 20 years ago. Whatever happened then has nothing to do with us now. Going after them will ruin us. We'll lose everything. My career, your career, this house, our reputation. Is that really worth it? He took my hands. These people will destroy you. They will destroy us. And for what? Justice that won't change anything. I pulled my hands away, seeing clearly for the first time. I'd married a man who valued success over integrity. I'd built a life on selfishness and ambition. My mother had been the only person who'd ever truly loved me unconditionally, and I'd thrown that away. But seeing the truth and having the courage to act on it are two very different things. I didn't destroy the documents. I didn't go to the police either. I did something worse. I did nothing. Days turned into weeks. Work continued. We attended Gerald Henderson's massive CEO celebration, smiling and clinking champagne glasses with people who might have ordered my father's death. But inside, I was rotting. I couldn't sleep without seeing my mother's face. I couldn't look at Marcus without feeling disgust. The breaking point came 3 months later. I was at a company gala when I overheard Gerald Henderson and Marcus talking near a side exit. "The Morrison issue is resolved," Gerald was saying. "Patricia Morrison passed away a few months ago. Natural causes."
No complications.
My blood turned to ice. "And the daughter?" Marcus asked. "She's been too busy building her career to pay attention to her dying mother. Sometimes problems solve themselves." Gerald laughed. "And even if she finds anything, well, I trust you'll handle your wife appropriately. Keep her focused on what matters." Marcus chuckled. "Rebecca won't be a problem.
Trust me.
I'd married the enemy. I'd chosen a man who was helping protect my father's killers over a mother who'd sacrificed everything to protect me." The next morning, I walked into the FBI field office downtown with copies of everything. I told them about my father, about my mother's death, about the conversation I'd overheard. Within 2 weeks, federal agents raided Marcus's office and our home. They arrested Gerald Henderson, Marcus, and 6 other executives. Marcus tried to call me from jail. I didn't answer. The trial took 8 months. I testified for 3 days straight. Marcus got 18 years. Gerald Henderson got 25. I should have felt victorious. But mostly, I just felt empty. Because I'd gotten justice for my father, but I couldn't get back the time I'd lost with my mother. I sold the townhouse, quit my job, and moved into my mother's house. I spent months going through her things, finding notes she'd written about me. Proud comments about my promotions, worried thoughts about my happiness, desperate hopes that one day I'd come back. In her nightstand, I found a stack of cards. Birthday cards, Christmas cards, Mother's Day cards, all addressed to me, all signed with love, none of them ever sent. She kept buying them, kept writing messages, kept hoping. The last card, dated 2 weeks before she died, said simply, "I forgive you for everything. I always will. I hope someday you'll forgive yourself." I'm 40 years old now. I live in the house where I grew up, working remotely. I visit my parents' graves every Sunday, bringing flowers and talking to them like I should have talked to my mother when she was alive. I apologize constantly, even though I know she can't hear me. Sometimes I think about that last hug I can't remember. Was it quick and distracted? Stiff and obligatory? Or was it warm and real, and I just forgot it because I thought there would always be more chances? I'll never know, and that's what I'll carry for the rest of my life. Not just the guilt of abandoning her, but the agony of not even being present enough to remember the last time I held her close. The other day, Mrs. Chin told me something that broke me all over again. "Your mother, she asked me to hug you at funeral. She knew you would need hug, but I forgot I was too sad."
I'm sorry.
Even in death, my mother had been trying to take care of me. Even knowing I'd abandoned her, her last thoughts had been about making sure someone would hug me at her funeral. That's what unconditional love looks like. And I threw it away for a corner office and a husband who was helping cover up my father's murder. I got justice for my father. I exposed corruption and sent bad people to prison. But I would trade all of it for just 5 more minutes with her. For one more phone call where I actually listen. For one more Sunday dinner. For one more chance to hug her and tell her I'm sorry. But that chance is gone. And the last hug I ever gave my mother is a memory so insignificant that I can't even remember it happening. If you still have your parents, call them.
Visit them.
Hug them like it might be the last time, because someday it will be.
Don't be like me.
Don't wait until a letter from beyond the grave forces you to finally see what you lost. Don't let your last hug be one you can't even remember. Some voices stay silent for years. But here, every story finds its sound. Like, subscribe, and stay with the silent parents.